everybody, Allie here. Today, sadly enough, I have to make a couple of sympathy cards. So I pulled out some of my gorgeous Catherine Pooler inks. And today we're going to be working with Bay Breeze, Skylight, Glam, Serene, and possibly a little bit of Twilight. And we're going to be doing some watercoloring with these inks to create a background that's kind of soft and subtle. So I've cut myself some watercolor paper. I have my laminated piece of white cardstock. This makes a great palette and you can make them at home. I have a half sheet of paper because it's a nice size for my desk, and I pulled out my jelly plate. So now we're just going to start with our soft light colors first. So I'm just going to dab a little bit of our Serene onto our palette here. And I'm just going to use a watercolor brush and add a little bit of water to it. And we're going to use our jelly plate and just kind of paint it on. This really is an experiment because you never know kind of what you're going to end up with, and that's part of the fun, right? So let's add some of our darker Glam. This is a fabulous new color in the Luxe color line of CP inks, and it is stunning. So again, I'm just going to dab a little bit of it on our background as well. And again, I'm kind of going for an abstract watercolor, so I'm not concerned about things mixing or placement. I just want a watercolor feel on the back of my piece of paper. Okay, so I want this to mix a little bit and be a little bit more watercolor-like. So I am going to take my sprayer and just add just a touch more water to the background. And I take my my watercolor paper, and these are just roughly cut pieces, and we're going to transfer it right to the jelly plate. And again, we are going to get lots of mixing with this. Okay. Carefully take it off. There we go. That's kind of cool. So again, you could just do this with one color of ink and then dry it and then do it again to get more layered effect. So I may actually clean off our jelly plate in a moment here and go back with more of our Serene color. But let's give this a quick dry first. So I've tried this for the most part, and I am going to go in. There's some beads of beautiful color here. So I'm just going to go and press my watercolor paper back in some of those spots and pick up that leftover ink. And I'm just picking pieces of my paper at random. There's no real reason. I'm just kind of picking them up. And so again, we've added a little bit more spottiness to the image of our background. There we go. So let's take a little bit more of our color here. Just dab it all over, and again, we're going to apply that watercolor cardstock right to that surface again. This time we'll probably get a little bit more blobbies just because I didn't add any extra water to our platform here. So again, yeah, it's definitely a little bit more blobby, but that's okay. The fun part about watercolor is it's not meant to look anything specifically like anything. So you can be as abstract as you want to be. So there we go. So we've got our purples. Let's go and put some of our soft tealy colors in. So let's dab on a little bit of our Skylight color. All of my inks today are from the spa line with the exception of Glam. Glam is actually a party color. Now there is a little bit of ink still left on our jelly plate, but I'm not concerned about it because it's just going to add to the blend and feel of our background. So I'm not worried about it at all. So just picking up some of that ink. And again, we're just going to apply our watercolor paper right over top. There we go. Now, let's mix it up a little bit more And let's actually apply ink directly to the jelly plate this time. So this time I'm just kind of doing a line. And I'm going to take my fine mister and add water that way this time. Okay, this one's going to be bold, so here we go. Applying right to the paper. Okay, let's see what this looks like. Yeah, whoa. Definitely some ink blending going there. All right, I'm going to take it off camera, do some drawing, and then we'll go on to the next step. Now that we've dried that layer, I still have ink down here, so I'm going to take advantage of that. So just press it back in, and this is a great way to make backgrounds if you've done some kind of project on your jelly plate. And you don't want to, of course, why would you waste the ink? So just take a piece of any paper, it doesn't even have to be watercolor paper, and pick up all of that excess ink and just make some really cool spotty dotty watercolor backgrounds. Yeah. So I'm loving the colors I'm seeing. Of course, we've lost our poor little Serene in the mix of colors, but that's okay. But that's part of learning and experimenting with ink. So yeah, I'm going to do last minute dry, and then we'll figure out where we're going to go next. All right, I have some ink here, and I really want to see if I can get it to transfer over to the jelly plate. And for the most part, I think it will. Because again, why waste ink, right? I am going to put a little bit more glam on here. Just a tiny bits of it. Maybe we'll actually put some Serene in. And of course I can go a little bit heavier with the Serene just because it's such a light color, and I'm not sure if it'll show up, but we're sure as heck going to try. Okay, I am going to spritz again. Now, do you notice how he has some kind of semicircle looking bits here? If you want to soften that so it's not such a specific shape, just take your blending brush and go into those areas and mix it up to the ink a little bit so it's not so apparent that it's a shape, right? Okay, there we go. And then place your cardstock back on that surface again. I love the jelly plate. This is such a fun tool to have, and they really are inexpensive. And then, of course, you can do so many different techniques. Oh, love it. Okay, there's some more gorgeous ink there. I have this one little corner that's a little bit lighter, so I'm trying to add a little bit more of our ink off our jelly plate here, kind of in that one little corner. There. Oh, and look, and you can see the pretty little Serene in there. That's so pretty. Okay, now let's see if we can turn this into two backgrounds. For our two backgrounds, I am going to be using the Boho Feathers stamp set by Catherine Pooler. I've already put a piece of white Catherine Pooler cardstock into my mini Misty here. And now we're just going to have fun kind of blending colors. So I am going to start with our pretty light. And it does have a kind of a purple undertone to it. And we're going to start there. And my stamps are brand spanking new, so they're like super sticky right now. All right. So I'm just going to increase the color just by stamping another layer on some portions. Move my magnet out of the way there. Okay, let's go with some Skylight, and I'm just going to pick a couple of spots at random on our feathers. And these two colors, when you put them over top of one another, are so pretty together. So again, let's just add a little touch more of this color. I'm not even specifically going into the same spots. It's just kind of where my hands took me. Okay, let's go in with our Bay Breeze, which is a little bit darker than our Skylight. See where we can kind of put this. And I'll show you some blending tricks here. Okay, so when you go into your image, see if I can bring in a white piece of paper. Here. Shows up. They're very, very linear. And so if you want to get rid of those lines, take one of your blending brushes and just soften it out. And what it'll do is it'll take away those harsh edges and soften those ink lines so that when you do apply them, they won't have lines on them, which is not natural looking, especially for a feather. We want something subtle and beautiful and pretty and transforming. So yeah, so we're starting to get some interesting feather effects here. Now, our glam. Just trying to think if I have a brush for this color. Okay, so this is a very, very rich dark color. And I want to be deliberate in where I put my ink. So I'm going to go for the end of our spotted feather. And again, by using a blending brush instead of direct to stamp, I can be more deliberate and softer. So we have to do kind of like that spot. So I'm going to be deliberate in where I put it on the stamp. We've got like the tip of the feather. I'm going to put a little bit on the end of the feather and maybe just a touch down the side. And you can go as light as you want. I'm going to go a little bit on the end of this feather here. We're gonna finish off the tip. We've got our little teeny feather. We'll do a little bit on each end. On our middle feather here, I'll put a little bit on the end and up to maybe disguise a little bit of where that mark is. And then also I'm going to be fairly heavy with it on the end of this feather. So I love using blender brushes for this. And then of course, you pull up your image and find out where you missed or where you want to add more. So we missed a little bit of there. So let's go in and do that part again. I like the kiss at the end. Let's do a little bit more maybe in this feather where that break is. And maybe fill in a little bit of here and here. So again, with the Mini Misty, it allows you to go and re-stamp any area that you have missed, or if you need to add more ink to. And I missed that spot again. That's what happens when everything is in reverse, right? Okay, let's get that spot. It's on the other side, silly. Okay. There, I think we got it now. Okay, there. So instead of having a solidly colored image, such as our feathers here, now we have one that's variegated and beautiful. Yeah, so this is what we're going to put on top of our background. So I've fussy cut all of my feathers, and I've also trimmed down my panel into 4 separate pieces. And now we're going to assemble our cards. I've also gone and die cut using the same pattern paper. This one is the Chevron Slimline die, and it's very cool. I've also die cut this one, and this one is the Sitting Pretty Slimline die, and it's gorgeous too. So we're going to incorporate these on our cards. Now, I started off wanting to make 2, but actually I think I'm going to get 4, and that's actually the amount that I really need. So let's get these assembled. We're going to start with 2 here. Let's put those aside. We're going to start off with a white cardstock base. I'm going to actually trim these slim lines in half. So they measure 8. And so we're going to cut them in half at 4. So that'll give us 4 pieces for our cards, which will help. Just line them up so they're straight. 1, 2, 3, 4. So this is kind of how I envisioned our card here. So we're going to take one of these and we're going to put it on the back, and then we're going to use one of these strips as the base. And I may have to trim my cards down ever so slightly, but I'm okay with that, because like 1/8 of an inch or even 1/16 of an inch shorter, that's nothing. And then we're going to kind of position our feathers. So something like that. Okay, so let's go and assemble 4 cards. I'm going to mix and match things, and I'll come back and show you the end result. And here's our end result. To finish off my cards, I took a small piece of Glam inked up cardstock and just put it above each of the watercolored pieces. I also added some silver string and Thinking of You sentiment from the same stamp set. And here's the first one, and the second, and the third, and number 4. So there we go. 4 sympathy cards all ready to go. Thanks for joining me today. I hope I've inspired you to pull out some inks and get inky. Bye guys. See you again soon.